Hello, everyone. Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT service business, whether you are a one-person shop or nimble MSP, as we like to say nowadays, or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. My co-host, Rick Smith, is not available today. However, we have some great guests today that are going to really allow for just that camaraderie. We had them over at TechCon Unplugged this past year. David, it was a great chatting with him, great personality. I mean, once you talk to him, you're going to know that he's good people. We also have his founder, Matthew Pincus, coming on here as well. Let me go ahead and bring them to the stage. David, Matthew, both founders of Helpt, Helpt. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks, Paco. I'm smiling ear to ear after that intro. I'd like to think I'm good people, but who knows?
And I'm smiling ear to ear because a lot of people see it spelled Helpt and pronounce it Helpt. But to get out there that it's just called Helpt, I smile ear to ear.
Gotcha. Now, gentlemen, David, I've met you in person. Matthew, this is the first time we were actually seeing each other face to face, but we were having a conversation on the phone not too long ago, talking about all things Helpt. But before we dive into the company and what you are trying to do for the channel and for the industry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you kind of came into the space on that journey? David, I'll start with you.
So, previous role that I was in, I was overseeing a large technical support organization globally. And we had some customers that were wildly stringent with their requirements, and they needed us to be able to, respond very quickly to tickets, to phone calls, all of that. And I was unable to really find anybody that could help me out when it came to a partner. Covering a 24-hour day is very difficult, and it was incredibly difficult when I had folks all over the globe. And so I started to try to find, companies that could help, and I just couldn't find them. And so when Matt and I had the good fortune of being able to leave the last company with a little bit of an equity stake, we said to ourselves, let's create this thing that the market needs. And so, my nature is that I like to help people. We called it Helpt. Now we're here to try to really help out everybody we can.
Awesome. How about yourself, Matthew?
Yeah, obviously my story is pretty similar. David and I were at the same company together previously. I was the managing director of our European, African, and Indian operations, and things were going well, but we needed that global support because we were dealing with a lot of global organizations. So David's team was vital to the success of our business. Things, generally went pretty well, but I was always aware of David's struggles. I joined the company previously when we were around 15 people. David came in a little bit later, probably 30 or 40 people. When we left, the company was 400 or 500 people globally. So we'd really grown it from a small business to, I guess, a medium-sized business, but a much more corporate business. After that exit, we sold to, a publicly traded Fortune 500, true corporate entity. And it was just a big culture shift. And I think what I really enjoyed was the opportunity to build something like I had done for the previous decade. And so when we did get that chance to leave, to be able to start something new and to help people, as David said, was a really exciting opportunity.
Gotcha. And then obviously this brought you to Helpt. And I just have to ask, did you have to do HLPT for the domain name? That's what I want to know. Or is there an actual reason behind on spelling it Helpt with HLPT?
We were Matt and I were sitting in a courtyard somewhere. I think his daughter had an ice cream in her hand, and we were talking about what we were going to name this thing. And I don't know if it was a shipped truck, those trucks that have the SHIPT or something like driving by. But it came out. I was like, Matt, let's call it Helpt. And he was like,
Nice.
yeah, like HELPED. And I'm like, no, HELPT. Like we're cool, we're nouveau, we're whatever. And so I think that's how it happened. And actually, the domain name thing, it turns out that there's a Helpt already out there in Buffalo that does like home services. And so I can't even get help.com. We had to do gethelped.com.
So I think help.com is actually a squatter, and then helped.app was the company that started in Buffalo around the same time that we did. So yeah, that's where we settled on gethelped.com.
Gotcha. So it's funny because for ProdigyTeks, similar situation. So we were like, I was going through my mind of saying, all right, what's a smart person at the time, because we were a break fix shop, geek and nerd was being overused. So I was like, what's a smart person that could be tech wise? And I was like, oh, Prodigy. And then when I looked for Techs, TECH was taken by a company over in Utah. So I was like, I can't use that domain or that registration. Then I was like, all right, I'll switch it to a K. And then there was a company in Dallas that had it with a K. And I was like, motherflower. So then I was like, all right, I'll add an S. So then I put ProdigyTeks as one word. And then that's how it kind of came to be. And I always check every so often to see if those domains are up. And so they both actually did on the upcoming up. But as you all mentioned, squatters got to it before I could. And they want an obscene amount of money. So we'll leave that to there. So yeah, totally can relate, understand that. But now, as far as for everyone tuning in and just wants to know, what is Helped?
Yeah, great question. So Helped is an answer to the outsourced help desk woes. We come from a corporate arena, like Matt was just talking about, and we oversaw those tech support teams, and we needed to find a way to kind of jump in and help people that were in the same position that we were previously. And so we call ourselves fractional support agents. We don't call ourselves an outsourced solution because an outsourced solution seems a little bit like it's not
Exactly.
a real partnership.
So
Matt, keep
Help
going.
is a help desk organization. That's what we do. We are the help desk. We don't like using the word outsourced because the way we operate, and we can get more into detail about that, is that we plug into your organization. It's as though you're hiring someone, but you're actually getting our whole team. So we consider it to be more of a help desk partnership. But yeah, we are a help desk organization. We provide the help desks that your business can keep running without needing to worry about somebody calling in because the printer's not working again.
Sure. Now, as far as we tend to hear a lot of these type of businesses out there, right? White label help desk organizations, outsourced help desk, and everyone has kind of their own different flavors, right? And so I'll go into a little bit more on kind of what I've experienced because we've worked with white label help desk before as well. But what is currently kind of like your services and what's your model? Is it more of like are they dedicated resources to the MSP? Is it a team of pods that you do dedicate to the MSP and or IT service business? And kind of walk through us on how that has helped some of those partners, whether they are a single person or maybe using it as a leverage of overflow or with teams. Can you share a little bit about some experiences after kind of just telling us how you all are trying to bring help to those that are in need of help?
So we do operate in a pod system. The pod system gives us a whole bunch of advantages. One of them being the continuity of support. Somebody's going to call in day one and they're going to get Michael, and then they're going to call in day 10 and they're going to get Michael again. And it's the same 5 people that are going to be on the service desk. One of the big benefits for our clients is that they can immediately say that they're 5 people bigger. They've got a help desk team that they can announce to their clients and say, hey guys, we're growing, we're expanding. Here's this additional team of people that's going to be here to support you. This is massive when it comes to filling out RFPs or sending in quotes. Somebody might ask, well, how big is the team? You can say 6 now instead of just 1.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm always most proud of, one of the key aspects to the service that we deliver is the quality of our agents. And that's not just being technical and able to solve the issues. It's also being personable, friendly, helpful. It's somebody who leaves the end customer with a good taste in their mouth. We've had a couple examples now come up where we have clients where maybe we're just doing out of hours or just overflow type support. So we're not always the first line. We're not always the first text that they get. But what we've seen is that because there is some of that familiarity that's created with our pod system, we'll occasionally have people calling into our clients, getting our clients, in-house first line text and actually requesting our text just because of the positive experience that they've had, in the few times that they've called and gotten those same people. So I'm really proud of how this pod system is working and the people that we're using in the pod system.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I've heard from some other bigger MSPs that, who have staffed and things of that nature, that the pod system is so important to really help maintain that personability, like you mentioned. I think that there's something to say where if you've grown an organization so big and having to operate as many small businesses as if you were small goes such a long way. And exactly like you said, and that was one thing I wanted to touch on, is that when for other white label help desks, sometimes, and even answering services, right, that you call in and sometimes it could be just a different person, and then the customer will have frustration because they've already iterated what the issue is. Maybe the first time they called in, it wasn't captured properly. Now they've talked to a second person, they have to reiterate it again, and then now the details have been lost, and now there's cause of frustration. So that's one. And then two, I think you said it best, where not only are we trying to provide a great resolution for the issue, but we're really focusing, at least for us as an MSP, is the customer experience. I think customer service is dead. I think customer experience is what is now the current thing that everyone should aim for as a bare minimum. Not even these are like the cherries on top. This is the main thing that a lot of clients and end users are looking for. So, trusting into an external arm of yourself, not only can you maintain some of that same culture, which you're trying to do as far as the company culture, but the personability is so important. So it's great to hear on that part. David, it sounded like you were gonna say something.
Oh yeah, no, I think that the fact that you were talking, yeah, I'm a rambler. I think so I think that one of the things that you said about that kind of that loop that happens where somebody calls in and they end up explaining their issue, and then they get sent to somebody else and they explain the issue, and then they get sent to somebody else and they explain the issue. That's something that we mitigate with our direct to tech operation. When somebody calls in or when somebody sends a ticket in, there's no dispatch, there's no triage. It's somebody that's going to more than likely be able to resolve the issue that they're going to get on the phone or working that ticket. When it needs to be escalated, it's getting escalated in a package, because you're talking to somebody technical who's taken a handful of steps and understands what it might take to resolve the issue. So our clients get a little bundle that says, here's what's going on, and here are the things that I tried, and here are the things that I think need to happen next. And it saves an incredible amount of time, and it makes the experience a lot easier for the customer. I got out my issue, I had somebody friendly to talk to, they helped me try a couple things. Now it sounds like we need something else. They'll get some help, and then we'll be all right.
And then Paco, keying in on the idea of that customer experience, I agree with you completely. I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to. We want to be the problem solvers. We want to be the people who actually get those solutions. But the most important thing is to create that positive experience in the process. When we talk to clients, I tell a story about somebody who used to work at our previous business, who the business had sort of pivoted from one technology to another. And with that pivot, this was an older guy. He didn't really learn the new technology. He was still on the help desk. He was still the tech support guy. And he had this way of never being able to solve any customer's problems, but always making them feel great about it, always making them feel like they were heard, like they were being responded to, like there was some urgency behind it. And what we realized is that meant that customer was a customer for life. They love, people understand that things will go wrong. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. But if you're responsive when you're dealing with that problem, that customer knows you're somebody that they can rely on, and they will keep coming back to you. So it makes it so that your customers will always be your customers, and they will evangelize you. They will spread the word to other potential customers. So it's a great way to keep your customers and grow your business.
No, and what you've said, and especially David, you just hit on something where, I think for a lot of failures that on other white label help desk, and I'm curious to see how you handle this, is that, sometimes an issue may come in, and I've heard from other colleagues that have hired others that I won't mention their names, but that they'll try to address the issue. They'll try what they need to try, and then just kick it back and say, hey, can't figure it out, it needs X. And then when the technician does go into it, realizes, well, yes, this could have been solved. Here's the KB or knowledge for this. And there's a lot of that, and that causes that friction where they say, well, this is not for me, and then they decide to take it back upon themselves. How have you kind of battled that that area of where you may not know what's going on, or how do you best try to fit in with an MSP? Because obviously you're tailoring to so many different styles, so many different sizes, different ways of doing business. How do you try help with that, or how do you consistently try to make sure that the experience both for the end user and the MSP are conjoined together?
So I think that the first part of my answer is constant communication. There's a lot of services out there where it's like a conveyor belt. They get a ticket or a call, they work it, and then they put it back on the conveyor belt, never to see it again. For us, for our team, we believe in that constant communication where maybe something's come in and we don't quite have the access or don't quite know what the next steps are. We'll reach out to our client via Teams, Slack, whatever it is, to see if we can get a little bit more information. In some cases, they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's a thing I haven't given you access to yet. Let me take it over." In other cases, they'll say, "Oh, try X, Y, and Z." And then we try X, Y, and Z. We're here really to be a partner.
Mhm.
The other part of the question, this idea that people say, "Oh, it's not in the knowledge base, so I can't do anything." Um, that drives me crazy because you can always deliver fundamentals. You can always be professional. You can always try to isolate the issue. You can always, crack a joke or do something to, endear yourself to the customer. If I can't get into, a system, I'm going to make it easy. If I can't get into M365 admin because, something cycled and rotated and I can't log in, so I can't set up the forward that the customer is asking for. I can still be friendly. I can still understand the request. I can still give them communication to say, I don't have access right now. It's going to take us about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll get that taken care of immediately. We can still deliver a great experience, even if we don't have, a knowledge base article that says step one, step two, step three.
Sure. And now on the flip side, let's say there is a solo business owner that wants to expand their team. And, quite frankly, the best way to say it is that, and I talk about this because I ran my business as a solo business for 7 years before I expanded. Um, Sometimes we just don't have the time for processes and we don't have the time to try and put some of those things in place. If someone were to approach you, do you help them with the, hey, look, totally get this is where the mines are the mines are at, we know where the bodies are buried, but hey, here's what we believe would be a better fit, or is there conversations of that to help them with processes, or them just looking for guidance because they haven't enrolled with a white label or slash a help desk organization to expand their services?
Absolutely. I mean, we don't know everything. A lot of our clients know a ton more than we do. But what we do have is the ability to see a lot more. We're working with so many different clients that we see things that are happening in the industry, in sequence sometimes. Somebody will have an issue and then 10 minutes later we'll have that same issue for another client because it's an industry-wide thing. So
Hmm.
we end up with situations where we're kind of like the canary in the coal mine with stuff. And when it comes to documentation, we always want to be able to have editor rights to whatever system it is that you're using for documentation. There are things that we're going to be able to create on your behalf. There are things that we're going to be able to edit on your behalf. It's really like we're that level one agent. Hey, here's this new thing that happened. I want you to document it. You could say that exact same thing to the help team, and we'll document it for you.
It goes back to the idea that it's that partnership, that it's as though you're bringing in your own employee. If that solopreneur doesn't have documentation, he brings someone on board, that person's probably going to have to ask him a lot of questions the first week, the first month, and that person's going to be able to start creating their own documentation so that when you go from 1 to 2, the documentation's in place for the next person. We're able to do that on behalf of our partners. The more documentation we have, the smoother, more efficient, the fewer questions we'll have to ask. But we can build that out so that day 1 is a lot bumpier than the beginning of month 2 once we've helped create all that.
Gotcha. Now, as far as you mentioned level 1, when someone were to enroll in you, I believe you have different levels of experience within your pods to help even the camaraderie between all of them. I imagine they're all based in the same place, or if not in the same area, to help them work together moving forward.
So we're all US born and US based, but we aren't all over the country.
Mm.
There are a few things that we do to try to keep that camaraderie going. Every week we try to play a game, Scriblio. I love that. One of my favorites. It's like Pictionary, but online. And then we're meeting on a regular basis just to see our faces. In addition to that, we're constantly in Slack. The channel is on fire every day, all day. And so, there's a tough shift, when we're talking about working from home and remote work culture. But I think we're managing it pretty well. As far as different levels within the team, we've got most of our people that are MSP experienced agents. Some of them, were called level ones at their last gig. Some of them were called level twos at their last gig. Everybody is in that channel, and if something comes up that they can't figure out, they'll throw it in there. Like, hey, here's this new thing that's happening. What do you guys think? And almost always somebody will chime in and say, oh, here, try this. Or I don't know. And then at that point, we can go off to the client and potentially get some assistance.
Gotcha. Now, you did mention US born, US based. Was that intentional for the organization? And the reason why I asked that is because now, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there is a guide that a lot of the government agencies are starting to share from the National Defense Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Say that 3 times fast. And it's basically called the MSP Shopping Guide. And so you could just Google MSP Shopping Guide. And they say from what they're pushing out is that if you do not, if an MSP cannot answer the end user, because this is meant to be an end user document, if the MSP cannot answer the first 5 questions, you should consider another MSP. And question number 4 is, are there all US persons in your organization? And so it's very interesting because, for some that are having international presence, whether that's a help desk organization helping them hiring directly from other countries. As far as you stating US based and US born, was that intentional for the organization?
Yes. One of my favorite sayings is that expertise lives everywhere, and we're not trying to say that somebody out of the country is any lesser than folks that are here. What we are trying to say is that we're here for the cultural fit, we're here for the language fit, we're here for the fit. If you've got somebody that you're on the line with, I keep going back to Michael in Virginia, that's going to be a lot different of an experience if you've got somebody that's not in the same country. Michael in Virginia is going to tell you about the Bills game if you're a fan of the Bills. If you've got somebody that doesn't really follow all that stuff, it's a cultural fit is where I'm trying to go with that.
You can find somebody to call
and I
center
think that with all of the cybersecurity requirements,
I was going to say, you can find someone who speaks perfectly unaccented English in an overseas call center. They're just going to follow a script. They're not going to be conversational the same way. They're not going to have that cultural fit. And so it's more than just somebody who is located here who sounds right. It's somebody here that really empathizes with the person who's calling in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to say about that because, for example, us currently, we are international. We have several technicians that are in Latin America, both in Argentina and in Venezuela. We have in Mexico as well. And so what we've learned, and then myself, so we're all different flavors per se, right? I'm of Puerto Rican descent. My dispatch coordinator and account managers are of Mexican descent, and then my technicians are of Venezuelan descent. And so what I've learned is that in the Venezuelan descent, they're they're Spanish speaking first, and their dialect is different than in the Mexican Spanish dialect. So what we've had to do is to help with that is create a way of being able to utilize things like the Bing AI, helping translate certain Spanish phrases into a certain different dialect and things of that nature. So, but as you mentioned, someone, especially if they're a solo business owner or don't have the time to put something together like that, it could cause a friction inside of the experience of the client and the customer, because we did that. We experienced that very early on, and it took a long time to try and get that together. Because as you mentioned, it's not so much the fact that they're not US born or US based in the organization, it's the cultural differences of understanding, even down to different phrases. And, you have to worry about or try to understand that. I'll give you an example where one of our technicians said, "Oh man, I'm wasted." And in our terms, that's not a good thing. It means it's under the influence. But what it meant in their dialect was that they were wiped out. They were tired from the day before. So it's those type of nuances that you want to make sure you're on top of and things of that nature. So although, as we mentioned, these are some of the things of culturally to keep in mind as you are considering a type of outsourced external arm for your business. But as you mentioned, having that partnership, that collaboration, the culture, and you being fully remote team, us being a fully remote team as well, you can identify some of those things as well. But really getting down to what everyone probably wants to tune in is, as far as for, someone looking into enrolling with Help, how are you helping MSPs not only save time, improve their services, but everyone always cares about their bottom line. How are you helping them save money as well?
So I think it's one of those things. First, when you talk about saving time, it's an efficiency thing. The average user requires something like 15 minutes of support on a monthly basis. And if it were a utopia where one person were calling in sequence after the next 15 minutes at a time, then you could have one technician who supports about 700 end customers. But the industry standard is more along the lines of 100 to 150 end customers per technician. That means there's 80-85% waste in there just because people aren't calling in sequence. So the great thing about Help and the fact that we have these pods is that there's the flexibility. When there is that sudden outage where you're getting a surge of calls, we're going to be here to handle that surge of calls. You're providing that great customer experience because they're not waiting their turn for your couple techs to kind of get through the long list of calls, but rather they're getting absorbed into our team who's able to answer the phone simultaneously. As well, we had one client who tried us at first because they were paying a couple $1,000s a month just to have their agents available for on-call nights and weekends. Not even if they ever took call, not if they did any work, just to have them available. They were paying a couple $1,000s a month. They came to us and said, look, if you guys can handle the nights and weekend stuff without actually, costing as much as these guys are costing, we're going to be thrilled to use you. So they did. And it was phenomenal because their agent said, great, we don't have to be on call anymore. We love this. Like, yeah, the money was nice, but now we don't have to worry about it so much. There's someone else who can handle that. We saved the company some money in the process. They liked us so much, they ended up expanding, using us during business hours as well. So, we demonstrated to them that we could help their techs quality of life, avoid burnout, save them money in the process, and provide all those fundamentals, a great, service and quality and experience that we are able to provide.
We want the techs to be able to enjoy the good type of wasted on the weekends versus having to have their phones ready.
No, I hear that. Now, as far as support structure, it sounds like obviously you can handle depending on the type of structure they have. So whether they're East Coast or West Coast, you have the ability to help support them on many of those hours that they need support for.
Yeah, absolutely. We're available 24/7.
Okay, very cool. Now, do you, someone that wants to reach out and understand a little bit more, do you all have a partner program? Do you have a kind of, let me rephrase my question. When someone reaches out to you and to become from prospect to client, how fast is that onboarding process for them to just be able to hit the ground running and start utilizing your support services?
We had a client call us on a Friday afternoon, a prospective client call us on a Friday afternoon because they had 2 techs that had quit and they were desperate for help. We did the onboarding with them on a Saturday morning. We were live on Monday. That's not typically the process, but we're nimble. So that can be the process if it's necessary. The reality is the onboarding process, takes a couple hours, usually spread out over 2 calls. We won't go into all the details of the process, but it's not too time intensive. It's not too labor intensive. Our team is experienced. So it's not as though you're bringing in somebody who's completely green to the field and needing to train them from scratch. We can generally step in. It's just a question of making sure we have the right access and that we understand your SOPs. If we understand your processes or your procedures, we're going to be able to follow those. We just need to make sure that they're in our system so our agents know what to do when they're handling a ticket for you.
Very cool. Now, there's one thing I do want to highlight that I thought was really cool that you guys do uniquely versus some of the others, where, every time I've looked at an external help desk organization, we had to fit into their mold, meaning their systems, they're running either Autotask or the big 3, big 2, I guess now, trying to figure out, how do we make this work, or we can buy licenses from us to, and so it seems like the MSP always has to adjust what they're doing in order to make it work. But when we talked, you had a very unique way of doing so on being able to do this. Can you share a little bit about how this differentiates your ability to interface with an MSP versus some of the others?
Yeah, so what we do for our agents is we provide a platform that allows them to very quickly switch into different groups of tools. So, each of our clients has a little header. And when a ticket is being worked for that client, our agent clicks the header and it drops down all of the tools that they may need. It means not just the PSA and the RMM, but things like I don't know if I can name names, but other like email filtering type things and, DNS filtering type things and, really tools that they're going to need. And so they're right there at their fingertips, instead of it being something where it's like, I'm just working a ticket. I'm going to go into IT Loo, I'm going to go into whatever, and I'm going to find a password and go from there. It's all just right there. I know that this show actually talks about different tools and resources. And the last thing we want to do is say, you took 6 months to make a decision to try this new thing. And now if you want to use us, you've got to go to what we want. It doesn't make any sense. We're your team. You're bringing us on as the fractional agents, but as the partner in your environment, not in ours.
Yeah. Exactly. And it goes to that idea of the partnership. It's as though you're bringing somebody onto your team. You're bringing us into your team, into your environment. We want to be something that you just add, a net positive, a complete positive, because there shouldn't be any complication, frustration, headache if you want to try to figure out how to fit us in.
Awesome. I wanted to make sure I tagged on that because I think that's a very unique ability, which causes a lot of frustration for a lot of those that are trying to A, make it work, or B, as they're trying it out. Sometimes it just is not it's just a subpar experience from what I've heard from other colleagues. But gentlemen, we're at the rounding out the end of the show here. I do want to make sure that we did cover everything that we did want to talk about the business. Is there anything that we may have left off on, anything as far as the services, the business itself, or anything that you want to share just about Helpt in general before we go into how they can reach out to you?
One of the things that I think that we see a lot is this desire to kind of keep control of all of your business operations, and to be able to trust that your agents are going to do what it is that you'd want them to do. And it's really hard to kind of impress upon somebody the fact that, Matt and I were in that role. We were the ones that were leading these teams. Like, we know what it takes. We know what good looks like. That's our thing. And so if you can trust us just a little bit, we'll prove it to you.
Awesome. Matthew, any other words?
That was a pitch.
I felt like he added it.
Go. Say something less.
Yeah, that was such a good tag at the end there. But no, I mean, that's exactly what it is. We're trying to make your life simpler. We're trying to make things easier, smoother. We're trying to make you a little bit more productive and more profitable. We're here to be that partner to just enable you to run the business and focus on the stuff that you want to focus on.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to talk to you all. David, especially since I've met you in person several times before, and you're always a hoot. Matthew, great to meet you, and hopefully we'll be running into each other here in the coming year in some of the trade shows. But for those that want to know more about all of you, what is the best way to either A, know more about Helpt, or reach out to one of you just to pick your brains or just chat?
Well, so our website is gethelped.com, again, HELPT.com. We can provide a link to our MSP specific page, gethelp.com/managed service providers. There's also contact information on the page, but if you want to get a hold of us, you can also email us directly. You can find us on LinkedIn. We're in a lot of the MSP Slack and Discord channels as well. We're generally available in a ubiquitous nature. We try to be accessible anyway, anyhow. And we're always happy, especially David, to just have a nice little conversation with you about whatever you want to talk about.
I just put my cell phone number in my tagline there. Send me a text, give me a call, whatever it is. I love talking about this stuff, like Matt mentioned.
Perfect. We'll make sure we have those in the show notes as well for our audio listeners. Gentlemen, really appreciate the time you've taken this morning to talk a little bit about the business. Hopefully this will help spread the word about Helpt. I think I'm excited to talk more with you all here in the coming year, and more than all, we'll see you in the coming shows, and hopefully we'll see you back at TechCon next year. But with that, everyone, thank you again, and thank you for listening in. We appreciate you tuning in. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. Watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you never miss a new episode when it is available. You can also take us with you on the go. We're on your favorite podcatcher apps, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music, to name a few. Most importantly, if you hear and you love what you hear, please leave a review, because this will help us get found by other like-minded business owners like yourself. Once again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.